Everybody, Dr. Tommie Smith.
Hello, hello. We are here. We're all here. Thank you for coming. We're here to celebrate the vision and courage of Tommie Smith. I think he needs no introduction. However, I think you will recall that he is a sprinter, civil rights activist, author, speaker, and scholar. While attending San Jose State on an athletic scholarship, Tommie excelled on one of the most competitive teams in collegiate sprinting history and became an icon of the civil rights movement at the 1968 Olympics. He would then set 7 individual and 6 team world records as a student athlete, in addition to winning Olympic gold at the 1968 Games. Smith graduated in 1969 with a degree in social science and went on to the National Football League, served as athletic director and sociology professor at Oberlin College in Ohio, and later taught at Santa Monica College in California. In 1978, he was inducted into the National Track and Field Hall of Fame. And in 2019, a lot of you were here the same night of our SJMA exhibition opening. He was inducted into the Olympic Hall of Fame. So welcome, Tommie Smith. We also have the great pleasure to honor Tommie's inspiration and the artist Glenn Kaino. As most of you know, Glenn is a conceptual artist based in Los Angeles who integrates innovative methodologies with established art historical traditions and orchestrates spectacular aesthetic phenomena that offer critical commentary on the collective contemporary consciousness. As an art student in the 1990s at UC Irvine and UC San Diego, Kaino adopted a layered philosophical approach to art making founded on the primacy of ideas. He works with sculpture, painting, filmmaking, performance, installation, and large-scale public work. But since his practice is fundamentally idea-based, Kaino is committed to engaging any techniques, processes, tools, technologies, or collaborators necessary to manifest the concept at hand. And among your many accolades include recent solo exhibitions, not just here, but at the Contemporary Arts Center in Cincinnati, Modern Art Museum in Fort Worth, and an upcoming exhibition at Mass MoCA. My name is Sarah Batten. I'm the director here at SJMA, and we're also here to thank our generous sponsors. All of these projects come together with lots of planning, including the largest grant ever received by this museum from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation. We got major support from the National Endowment for the Arts, and we have Silicon Valley partners like Applied Materials and our generous donors, McManus Faulkner. Bill is here tonight in our audience. Thank you, Bill. Tad Fries and Brooke Hartzell and TechCU. We're also here to thank our partner, History San Jose, for the exceptional exhibition Speed City, From Civil Rights to Black Power, which I had the great honor of walking through with Tommie the day after the opening in November. And we want to thank Bill and the team. In just a moment, we're really here to listen and learn from Glenn and Tommie, but I want to first introduce an amazing partnership that's kicking off tonight in many ways and has been behind the scenes. We are co-presenting tonight's talk with San Jose State University's Institute for the Study of Sport, Society, and Social Change, which is ISSSC. A lot of S's. And this is a university institute that follows in the legacy of Tommie Smith, John Carlos, and Dr. Harry Edwards to keep their commitment to equity and justice alive and at the forefront of student minds today. So tonight I get the honor to introduce Dr. Aquila Carter-Francique, the new executive director.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening, everyone. I can't tell you how excited I am to be here. This is just an amazing partnership. So many things, and just I'm excited to wait and hear. But I will say that while I'm so excited to be here, I have to admit that I was not born until 8 years after this event happened. But my parents told me the story. They told me the story. They gave me the history of Tommy, of John, and even Peter's courageous stance. I would come to be a student of track and field and compete at the University of Houston, which I'm very retired. And in those years, I would discover more of Dr. Harry Edwards and Ken Noel and their efforts in the storied event in '68. And today, I'm glad to say, I teach it. I teach it here at San Jose State, and some of my students are here with me today. So again, I'm excited. I'm excited to collaborate with the San Jose Museum of Art for this event, excited to be a body in this space with Tommie Smith, with Glenn Kaino, and the creative minds. So we at San Jose State thank you all for coming this evening. I would like to also acknowledge some of my colleagues and courageous leaders, advocates, activists that are in this room today, to include our president, Mary Papazian. Is she here? Did she step in? No? Our provost, Vin Del Casino. Our athletic director, Marie Tuet, thank you. And of course, Dr. Harry Edwards and Ken Noel, thank you for coming. Our institute, our ISSSSC, executive and faculty advisory members, as well as our faculty affiliates. And lastly, and certainly not least, to my esteemed faculty here at the university, our staff, our students, and of course our community members that I've been able to work with in and around this particular area. So welcome me to the city, since I've only been here a few months. But thank you very much, and enjoy.
Yeah, it's Kaino, but Kaino works too, because one of my friends told me once that I should name my first daughter or son Vol, because then people would pronounce it volcano, and it would just totally work. No, I was also born after it happened, and I'll start by telling a short story, and then we'll hear mostly from hopefully Tommie. But I was also born after it happened, and how many of you remember here the first time you saw Tommie's salute? I do. And if you don't, you're probably raising your hand anyway. Throughout the course of this 7-year journey that we've been working together, the first thing I ask everyone is, when did you first see the salute? And we've got really great answers from people like Jesse Williams, who said that his father sat him down and explained to him the salute. Dr. Lonnie Bunch, who really described the entire moment of watching it live, and how he stood up taller the moment after it happened, how everyone learned a bit from that moment. And the most powerful thing that we saw, I think, to wrap it up in this long journey of hearing stories about the salute, was recently Afshin and Jake and I got to go see Megan Rapinoe. And we asked Megan that answer, and she gave the answer, because I remember it from high school from an academic textbook, and part of my memory was it being a flattened image, of a man who I just turned the page. And history has a way of flattening itself in that sense, and you don't really get what's below the surface. But Megan had the answer that, as an artist, when I see someone who makes something great, and a colleague, friend, or someone in history, and I go, man, I wish I made that. I wish I thought of that. I wish I had that thought. And I'm sure as writers, you guys do too as well. She's had the answer that I wish I had, which was, I don't remember the first time I saw it. It's always been in me. I think that she said the consciousness of our society has grown up with Tommie. So she goes, I'm an athlete from the moment I've studied sports, from the moment I got interested in being an athlete. The first thing you learn is Tommie Smith. The first thing you learn is what sports can mean. And that was the answer that we all looked down and said, man, first of all, Megan's a genius. But that is a fantastic way that I thought we would start today's conversation. For me, like I said, I saw it years ago, and so much so that I had a vision board. I had a small, like a 3x4-inch version of it taped to the corner of an iMac in my studio, and a friend walked up into my studio, and pointed at it and said, "Oh, Coach Smith, you want to meet him?" Now, I didn't know if Tommie was alive. I didn't, I knew that, like I said, the history book, I didn't know anything about him. But coach is only the term that you call someone who usually was your coach and who you know. And so I said, yeah, I want to meet him. And he walked to the corner of my studio, and he was texting somebody. He was texting Delois. And he comes back like a minute later, and he said, "They want to meet you." I said, what are you talking about? They want to meet me. Where do they live? And he says, they live in Atlanta. So quicker than he could say Atlanta, my phone was out on Expedia. 2 tickets were bought. And 2 days later, I showed up in Atlanta, knocked on Tommie's door. He shook my hand at the door, walked me into his house generously, sat me on the couch, and he played the race that he won, and he narrated it to me step by step, every frame of the story. And I got chills watching it, and I tell the story. Some people say, like, wow, hilariously, he narrated through the story, and I'm going to say it again. She's heard this 1,000 times, but an hour, Delois is a wonderful protector, as you will see in the movie. But an hour on the hour, she cut him off and said, "Tommie, be quiet. Glenn, why are you here?" Said, "Tommie will talk all night long if you let him, but we need to know why you're here." And as Sarah said, I'm a conceptual artist, so I'm not here to pitch you anything, but I do have an observation, if I may. And they said, "What is that?" And I said, "It strikes me that you live in a bit of a time bubble." And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I was born, like you, after that happened. So for me, it's always been a symbol. But for you, it's very personal. You shook my hand with that hand. You brush your teeth with that hand, like you drive like with that hand. The rest of us, we just know that hand up in the air." And so I said, what if we could collaborate on a project or something that functions in the now, allowing you to be a witness for the first time on the exterior of this image that you've created? Because out of all of us in the world, Tommie is the only person who didn't see the salute, because he performed the salute. He only saw from the inside of the salute out, right? And he then saw himself later from the outside in. And so I said, what if we could do that? And that started this journey where the next thing I said was, they said, what do you do next? I said, you come to LA and I'll take the arm off your body. And they said, what are you talking about? I said, no, I'm not going to amputate it. I'm going to cast it, and then we will figure out something to do. And 9 months later, we came out, and you saw the bridge there. So, but segueing into some of the great stories that we've had together, I want to ask Tommie a question before we get to more specific sports stuff. But what were you thinking when I said that?
To cure that with ice cream salt, Glenn, let me firstly thank all of you. Don't know if my mic is working because I can't even hear it. Yeah. Oh, thank you very much for coming to view and to hear us. Sometimes we talk about things that maybe we should not have, and don't talk about things that we should have. So again, thank you all. Now, would you please repeat that question?
Just since we're in the art museum, and I made this joke at the opening that, because Tommie has a drawing up there, if you haven't seen it, it's a wonderful drawing. So I got to go to Tommie's first museum show, but sadly, he will never come to my first track meet, because that will not happen. But I would say, in the years, and this is more of your story and history perspective, what went through your mind when an artist walks into the door? Because certainly reporters have talked to you before, certainly historians, you've written a book, and you've been the subject of a lot of other movies and whatnot. I mean, not our movie, yeah, but you've been the subject of things. What were you thinking when an artist came in and talked to you about art?
When you walked to the door, and when the athlete walked to the door, yeah, I saw a black athlete with a little Asian guy. That's what I saw. And I said, what now? So when I saw Jonte, I recognized that it must have been someone from my athletic past. And I was his coach at Oberlin College. So I knew things was pretty good. I knew I was bigger than the guy who came with, so I was pretty safe. So I invited him into the house, and of course I started talking. Hey, Jonte, he was over on my left. I was doing this to him. I said, Jonte, how are you doing? And Jonte, he's kind of, lethargic in his talk, but very direct And once I opened my mouth and started talking, because I was happy to see people that I knew, because in my house, you don't come in my house unless I know you or you know you're coming. And I started exploding at the mouth. And of course, as he said, Dolores stepped in front of me and said, "Tommie, be quiet." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she answered to Glenn. So that was my first liberty of talking to a guy that I hoped that had some sense. And ultimately, it came to me that if I remain quiet just another time in my life, maybe something would happen. Glenn, you're a good old dude, boy. You're something else. Something did happen, and we'll continue working on it.
And I'm gonna dig into some of Tommie's backstory and early stories that I've been able to hear, but likely and from what we know haven't been told. And so y'all get something new, because I know a lot of you have studied a lot of Tommie's history as well, and so perhaps we can shed some new stories and tell new tales as well tonight. So one of the things that I say in our film project, I say that I operate under the lens that everyone is an artist, and because everyone has creativity inside of them, and it's really how that is manifest and how you put that out into the world, And one thing that people don't know, though, that you were kind of a sculptor in the past, though, in when you used to pick up things. And people, I would like you to talk to the story about finding things, because he has a story about object making and object collecting that resonates in a historical sense with collecting and recognizing things in people and objects.
Being from a family of 11 brothers and sisters, I'm number 7 out of 12. I had very little to say because I had 7 sisters, so that meant I had no time. 7 days out of a week I didn't talk, and there's only 7 days in a week, and one for them for all day. So I had very much. So I would make friends with, anything I could. But when I couldn't find anything alive to make friends with, I started picking up inanimate things, because I felt lonely in my life as a kid, because I said not very much. So I picked things up, brought them home, and threw them under the house so they have a safe haven. Okay, call me crazy, but that's what happened. And that's what I became attended to, is things that didn't have anything to say because they had no way to say them. That's how I got started in the mind. So you could call that creative, you could call it artistic, but I didn't know, I had no bridge to cross to the other side to get that answer over. I could not display verbally what I thought, because people thought I was kind of to the left of it anyway, because I said nothing. Standing 6'2" in the 8th grade, being most everything in all the sports, and never said hello to anyone. I just beat somebody up on the football field, or made 30 points in a basketball game, waved high, smile. You notice I smile a bit here? That's not fake, that's just me, And I do things like this. So I found somebody, or someone found me, that could bring things out in me that I didn't know that was there because they were so hidden, and that's from the artistic view of life. So I can call myself a little half-time artist now.
Yeah. No, I mean, that story, when I heard that story about empathizing with inanimate, like with objects who didn't have voices, I mean, clearly there's a resonant through line throughout your entire career of standing up for those and things that don't have voices, and putting them in protective spaces. You were protecting the objects. You said you put them underneath the house.
I just throw them someplace where they'd be safe. I'd come back and get them later on.
And there's another amazing story that your brother Ernie, and you guys both told me a version of this story about when you were catching rabbits in the field with your dad. And this is a story that it's like an amazing story that I thought, this is why this guy is so fast. I mean, there's genetics, but this is like a different training. So can you describe how y'all got rabbits?
That was the only meat we could find.
No, not why, but like how. You got to tell a story about how.
You really want me to tell that story?
Yeah, and I'll tell you Ernie's
first,
version too. If we don't.
I know. I like talking to Glenn because he let me talk. Permit me to talk. I look over to my right and I see a mom in protection. Isn't that something? That's how I look at things. Then I look to my right and see somebody my age or older. Then I bring everything together. That's what makes me happy, is locking both ends so the middle can survive. Okay, now I'll answer your question. What was it?
The question was, can you describe how you and your dad and your brother would go hunt for rabbits?
Okay, I start out. That was the only meat that we had or could find, but we had no way of catching them, but to run up on them. So we had to run up on.
Yeah.
But I'm not fast as a jackrabbit.
That's not what Ernie said.
Well, Ernie's Ernie.
Yeah.
Ernie's a college vice president, so I don't know what to say about you people out there who are college vice presidents, but Ernie can have some stories. But me, George, James, and Ernie, we were pretty fast folks. Most of us went to college on a basketball or football or track scholarship. James went on a boxing scholarship because he's at 6'5", 270, but I'm not quite that big. So what we would do is Daddy would place us. Now Daddy's saying 6'2" himself. Daddy is Madagascar. So he would tell us, now boy, you stand over there, and Honest Joe, we call him Honest Joe. Her name is Ernie. You stand over here, and you put James and George and Tommie. You stand in the middle. Oh, what's the middle? He said, no, I don't mean the middle in the middle. You stand back here, so as the rabbit come your way and get by you, you can run and catch him. And that was my job. After the other boys had chased him so much that he had gotten tired, it was my time to get up on him. Look at that race in 68 at the end
That's
of it.
what I'm saying.
You'll see where I come up on
That's what
him.
I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Well,
Ernie tells a story that Ernie and the brothers would just be on the corners, and Tommie would run, beat the rabbit, and then sprint and scare the rabbit, so the rabbit would come back. And so Tommie literally outran the rabbits to have the rabbits come back when the dad threw the stick.
This is no joke.
Yeah.
This is no lie. It was real live or death, because if we didn't catch the rabbit, Mother would cook some greens that night, and greens don't go too far. By 2 o'clock in the morning, you can hear them greens, though, you know. Y'all back to hear me? Y'all know what I mean by hearing them greens? Oh, thank you. Okay.
So just by way of backstory then for the audience too, because we've lived with your story for such a long time. What can you just where were you born, and then how did you migrate out here? Because it's an important link also in terms of the politics of the day. Because I don't think most people, and Jake, when we were editing the film, I don't think people understand how recent this history is that we all think is 100 years old. But how did you come to LA, and what was that like?
I was just beginning my 7th year. So that meant I was just coming out of kindergarten into 1st grade, if that's what it was, back in the backwoods of Texas. You know, I knew snakes, alligators, and crows and things like this. They were my buddies. I had nobody to talk to. Way back in the woods in Texas, Clarksville, Texas. One day, this bus rolled up in front of the house, and Daddy said, everybody get on the bus. I wanted to get on the bus. I never seen anything that big before. So we got on the bus, and we rode forever. I didn't know that we were caught up in a sort of a indentured servant type situation where the white farmers would come south or to Texas, pick up a family with a lot of kids because they knew the kids would grow to workers. And there's a book out called California Gold. Remember that name, get it and read it, that depicts what I'm talking about.
And what year was that?
This was in 1951, turning 51. We came to California on this labor bus through Oklahoma to pick cotton, cut grapes, pick corn. I know I'm talking foreign talk to some of you folks. Irrigation, anything that would format the growth of mid-California or the San Joaquin Valley crop growing. And we were good workers too. So they let us off the bus after 4 days of traveling in a little town called Stratford, California. And we stayed in camps, little houses about the base, about big as this stage here. But we needed 3 houses because we had 10 kids and a mama and a daddy. But we had no bathroom. You know, Mama, if you got a lot of kids or just 2 kids, you need a good bathroom. But we had no bathroom. It was an outhouse. So I learned how to hold my breath a long time when I was a little kid. And I'm serious, too. You take a deep breath and you come out in 3 minutes. So that's what happened. And I did that for 5.
And how long were you having, because you were in the sharecroppers situation, how long before you were allowed to leave the camp?
Until we paid the debt that it cost to get to California. We came out on credit.
So this is the thing I honestly, the answer for me, who learned about American history, you think of indentured servitude, cotton picking, American South. You think of Civil War. You don't think the Beatles and Elvis in 1950 in Central California. That's a big part of this story that we are trying to bring light to in the film as well, which is this is like as Jesse Williams says in the movie, like this is now. This is not some bygone era. This is this man's life. How many another time scale slippage that's amazing is you were picking cotton until you were how old?
Gee whiz, until I left high school, that was 17 years old.
And then
18 years old,
you
or 25.
won a gold medal when you were how old?
24.
So between 17 and 24, 7 years before he's standing on the victory stand, he had to pick cotton for the family. And that is something I think is, again, these are the nuances of our own history that are lost in the history book that is not told, in that moment. And so when did you start running and knowing that you had potential?
We ran a lot of races in grammar school, of course, and in high school. Then I was on a high school athletic team, a track and field team, but on actually 3 teams, basketball, football. And basketball was my favorite sport. I went to college really on a basketball scholarship and turned it into track because I went on a scholarship to play basketball, football, or track. Seriously, not until my sophomore year, until I started beating anything that got in my way. And my way was in front of me. But I always loved to win because I always loved to please people, even inanimate objects.
You had one sibling that could always beat you, though, right?
I had a sister, Sally. Sally was built like Tarzan, really. At home, she would, for no reason, just catch me. Tommie, come here, and I was scared of her anyway, so I'd be ducking and dodging before I get there. She just grabbed my head, and I laid my head down. She grabbed it, she would ask me, does that hurt? I said, yes, Sally. She said, okay, just remember that. But at school, if anybody touched me, Sally would be my defender. I say, I wouldn't even have to say, get him, Sally. She'd just do it. She'd come through a wall and do it. And I never beat Sally at home in a race, running around the wood pile or racing to the outhouse to see the first one to use it. Sally would always beat me. If she didn't beat me and I beat her, she'd give me the what? The knuckles. So I never did beat this sister of mine. One day, the principal asked me to come out in recess, we called it, recess, to race my sister. I was in the 4th grade going into the 5th, and she was in the 7th grade. Because she's 2 years older than me. Because she would beat everybody in school, but she had never raced me in school. So he knew that if she beat everybody in school and she had a brother, only two years behind, what must he be? So he told her to go to the 4th grade and tell Mrs. Younger, oh yes, I remember her name. The teacher that you don't like the most does you the best, okay, because they make you learn. And let Tommie go to the 7th grade recess, and he would send him back as soon as he finished his chore. So Sally came in the room, and I was glad to see Sally because we was in a spelling contest. Of course, I was last, but I was in it. She got me out of the classroom and took me outside. I was so happy. I was just skipping behind. Can you see a young kid just skipping happily behind his big sister, going out to recess? So he said, Tom, come here. I went over to him. Yes, sir. I want you to race your sister Sally. I got the shakes right there. Because I knew if I beat Sally, she is going to get me. And Sally said, I won't hurt you. I won't hurt you. She shouldn't have said that. He put us on the line with another kid named Coy Cross. I talked to his buddy last week when I was in Lemoore about Coy Cross. And Coy was quick, very quick, 5'6", very quick kid. He beat me out of the blocks all the time. But he didn't this day because I knew if I beat Sally that I would be her friend forever. Came out of the blocks, I was gone. Used to make Gone. I was up and gone. And I 50 yards, I beat her, and I turned around. And I started ducking and weaving. She reached in her pocket. Man, I was ducking. She brought out a nickel. She said, "This is for beating me." I've only been beaten a couple of times since, because my sister gave me the chance to win and make something of it. So all you folks out there scared of winning, you're a chicken. Tell them Tommy Smith told you to do all you can to be first. I like being first, folks. Don't tell me, no, I'm going to let you be first because you're my friend. That's not your friend. That's one of the biggest enemies you have. Somebody let you beat them and like it.
That's amazing.
Let me tell you, Glenn, remember when we first met? And later on, we went down, once you started the project, it made me understand I have a reason to be even now. The reason it's 68, everybody see, now it's time for you to talk about what you believe in. We went out to where I used to live, 2 trees out there. Remember that?
Yeah.
I picked up an inanimate object.
Yep.
And I still got it.
Oh.
I just saw it. It looked really good to me. I looked around. There was a big old truck coming, so I let the truck go by. And you and I think Afshin was still filming. So I picked it up, put it in my pocket. So I thought that was something. Why do you? No, I don't.
Well, so let's fast forward to the house with 2 trees and the story that you told me about the bus stop and the coins in the floor.
We was going to a school, attending school in Lemoore called Central Union Elementary School once we left the Stratford School a year later. And we had to walk a half a mile to get to the corner where the bus passed because the bus wouldn't come by our house. It was too far out of the way. You all know the reason they didn't come by the house. Anyway, we had to walk half a mile. I know somebody was watching us. Somebody. 35 cents couldn't appear for a whole week in cement. It was that hot down there at 10 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning. Cement was blacktop, pavement. It wasn't hard. So somebody pushed money in that cement pavement where we were standing so we would have money for lunch. They knew we were hungry kids because they could see us as we walked. There was only 2 houses in that half mile, but somebody was watching us. 5 straggly little kids walking from that raggedy house down there with stilts on it, no windows, and a big old tank on top supposed to be water. But it was no water anymore. It dried up and it was gone. And so they buried money in the ground.
Yeah, when he first told me the story, you talked about finding it in the crack the first time, and then coming back the next day in the same place, more money was there.
Of course, I beat everybody there.
Exactly. You told me Sally took the first one.
Sometimes, but I got to get there to get the biggest money, which was a quarter. I remember that. Quarter lasted me 6 months because I wouldn't let nobody else find it. I inanimately buried it.
So let's fast forward under the theme of winning to the games, because also that's a very suspenseful and exciting moment as well. So talk to us about what happened in the semis. Well, first of all, this is because this is a cool factor. Right? How many races does it take a person to get into the Olympic Games? Hundreds of races to get just into the Olympic spirit physically. Yeah. Of competing on a world level. I mean, you're talking about a world. Everybody. So if you become one of the greatest, you become the recorded world's greatest. I'm sure there was some of my old buddies back in the day could whoop me on a whim, but you have to go to school. You can't sit on the front porch or sit with your buddies on Saturday night, get up on Monday and go and get an A in non-sleep. So you have to work there. You have to do it that way. Before I forget the question. Oh no, just talk about the semis and then the
hundreds of races. The semis for Tommie Smith. Was I scared? Yeah. I don't think there's a race I ran in my life where I went up, okay, I'm going to win this one, man. No. Anything could happen. Your heart can blow up, your feet could, somebody could step, anything could happen. You all know things that happened to you that you didn't think that was possible, but they happened. So each one of my races I took seriously. I've been told many times that you take running too seriously. I just smile, because I did. My studies I took seriously, my races I took, practice, I took everything serious. First race, excuse me, why? I ran a 20.1, I think, which was one tenth of a second off of my own world record I had set sometime before. Semis, I think I ran a 20 flat, which tied my own world record that I set some months before. The final was 19. Actually, folks, I'm going to tell you.
But hold on, before you get to the final, something happened in the semis.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I was moving at about 23 miles an hour. I could have got fined. I mean, anyway, I'll stay on.
Yeah, no.
And as I hit the tape out of control. I hit the tape, I was in control. I was taught to run under control, meaning this would rule everything. But when I hit the tape, I was so happy, I was smiling, and as I rounded the turn, most of you folks in here know a track. As you end up, I know you should know, yeah. As you in that race, the first move, the first thing you see is a curve, which is the first turn, like if you're running 400 meters. I ran it out of control. And you have muscles, ligaments in the body that keep things from flying off of you. It was an adductor muscle I pulled in the groin area. So I limped off, and I looked down to see if I was bleeding, because I thought I had been shot. All the threats on my life and my family's life before I left San Jose. I saw no blood, so I thought, oh, just a pulled muscle. Meaning nothing's going to stop me. So they took me down in the dungeon, iced it. You don't want to pull a muscle in the groin area and get iced, okay? just let me suffer.
Some of us.
So they iced it, 45 minutes, and I felt pretty good. Lee Evans came down, the great Lee Evans who won it, and we went to hit this school together, San Jose State University together, and he looked at me. He said, Smith, everybody called me Smith. He said, man, you better get well and run this race, and you better win it. I said, I'd do my best. He said, you can do better than that, win it. So my coach, Bud Winter, pulled me off the table after about 45 minutes, took me up to the training table, training track up above the competition track, and had me do some high knee 50s and 60s. Had me do my first one, felt pretty good. I said, oh man, the blood, it was still warm down there. The blood was still in that area. So he had me, okay, Tom, give me about 75. So I pulled off at 75, knees was up to here. I was feeling good. I was actually stupid, but I was feeling real good. And he said, okay, it's time to go. The track had stopped recently from warming up. All people on the track just to watch Tommy Smith. It was all over the world then that Tommy Smith might not be able to compete because of an injury. So everybody was watching. So they walked us back downstairs across the track from the finish of the 100 meters over to the 200 meters, all the way across the track. If you started 200 meters, walk across the grass instead of around. So we walked back, and I said, I hope we get there before this thing gets cold. Because once it gets cold, blood starts flowing through there, because that's where the adductor system lies or resides. And I had to stand there and watch all the other world-class athletes take their warm-up starts. Now, I'm the world record holder, but I had to stand there, could not warm up because I was afraid I might pull it, really, destroy it, really, in my practices to run the race of my life. So I stood there. Here's a 6'4", 190-pound guy standing there watching everybody practice. You don't want to do that. Turn your back. Do something else. Pick your teeth, anything. Just don't watch the warm-up. So I did. Gun in the air. Get set. It sounded. This was it. Those hundreds of races that I had won, lost one in my life, to John Carlos. That was a couple of weeks before in the Olympic trials in South Lake Tahoe. The only race I have lost in that race, in that event. And as I came out, I saw something looked like a house, felt like a house. That's how John ran. He was out in front of me. And I looked towards my left, there was another guy. I looked towards my right, there was another guy. I said, what's going on here? I said, I'm in trouble. Truly, I was in trouble. But, you know, I have faith. What is it? To me, ecumenically and spiritually, it's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But without work, of course, you're going to lose all of it. So I had to put that together. And, buddy, once I just flipped that, you know, that passage took me, what, 5 seconds to tell you? It went by in a nanosecond. Thought in my mind. By that time, I was out about 170 yards. I had caught up with the field. Well, I was glad. You should see that smile. Then I pulled up a little bit more. Then I opened the throttle, hoping that that muscle would hold on. And it did. Then I did something I had never done before in my life, is use my hand and arms respectively, knowing why I would use them a certain way, because I had practiced it earlier, but I didn't think I'd ever have to use it. I just wanted to win the race, not break a world record, because in mine anyway, I already had the world record. But when it felt so good, I just kept going. Just kept going. And it was the first race in the history of track and field under 20 seconds. Now, let me get quickly back. I've been talking too much here anyway. Let me get quickly back to the time of that race. As I went by the monitor that indicates your time, I saw a 19.72. The crowd was going, wow, oh man, I'm pretty good, huh? On the victory stand, I got a 19.83. That's a half a second. Who could make that mistake? Especially with electronic timing. So I kind of kicked that out. I didn't want to start a problem. I didn't want to start a problem at all, because I didn't know what was going to happen on the victory stand, because I hadn't decided what I was going to do if I won the race. That's how quick I had to think before the victory stand. The boycott had been called off because a lot of the athletes on the team said, no, this is my only chance I'm going to compete. So we said, okay, everybody compete. Go get your haircuts. Everybody going to compete. So that's what happened. That's why the Olympic Project for Human Rights didn't, they say, fulfill its entity. But it did. It gave me a chance to get on the victory stand and proved the need for that action. Did I want to do it? No, I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to do it. I went to college to get a scholarship. I went to college to get an education, get a job, get married, have kids, go to church, and die. That was what I was taught. But this brought in politics because I needed it. And that's basically what happened with it, without going to all the other nuances and things. But that's basically what happened. Victory stand appeared. Notice on the victory stand, I was an ROTC here at San Jose. I wanted to be an Army professional school teacher or a something else. Oh, police officer. Yeah. I know Broderick Crawford. I don't know if Highway Patrol. I don't know if you ever seen it, but I wanted to be like Broderick Crawford. So I went to one of those three. Of course, the victory stand kicked that out because I couldn't go to police school. ROTC, they kind of let me go and gave me an honorable discharge. I haven't gotten any money yet for anything for ROTC, but anyway, I got a discharge, and so it left me with school teaching. My first grade I taught was in the 5th grade at the same school that I graduated from in grammar school. And the teachers there thought I came there to help my daddy mow the lawn because he was a janitor. And when I told them, oh, no, I'm a teacher. I've been gone for 5 years. I'm a teacher. And Mrs. Yinger taught 4th grade. I taught 5th grade. We're still buddies. Of course, she's dead, but we're still buddies.
I'm going to jump back to the race real quick, because another amazing statistic that we just recently put together, because we knew the time, 19.83, but we realized that Tommie would have medaled in all but one Olympics since then with that time. That time would have won, I think, 4 gold medals. It would have been over 4 or 6 silver medals and the rest bronze. And only a handful of times since then have broken 20 seconds.
That's right.
You know, so maybe 6 times I've broken 20 seconds. So, I mean, and I will say that also someone who was a supporter critic was like, and if he didn't put his hands up at the end, it would have been 19.6.
You know that guy, whoever told you, wasn't wrong, because I broke strides, 4 strides before the finish. You look at one of those strides I took, my power leg was straight. That means I was slowing down. It wasn't bent for the next step. But I was just happy I won. I was just very happy.
I got a question for you, just because I've never won a race, and I was actually, you know. So Tommie and I had the honor, privilege, amazing time to go back to Mexico City, to Olympic Stadium. They gave us the stadium for 2 days, and we shot, and we actually jogged, not ran. Ran is too strong of a word to describe what we were doing there. We jogged, and 200 meters seems really fast. When you're watching it on TV and you're watching it on film, and you get on the track, and actually knows because we were there, and it's like, there's no way this is as long as it is. It's way longer. There's way more strides. I'm taking 3 times the strides. But when especially that last 3 seconds, it's going so fast. How do you know that you're in front? Like, there's people pretty close to you, and how do you?
Peripheral vision is quite important.
Yeah. Because you can't look.
Yeah. No. You're not supposed to look.
Yeah.
But some people just can't, you know. There's nobody in front of me. I can see that.
Okay. That's true. It's sort of like when I'm on the freeway. Yeah.
I love fresh wind.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice. Nelson George is in our movie, and Nelson is a historian. Nelson's amazing, and Nelson makes a really big point about all the athletes who have done versions of podium protests. Is that it is the end cap of winning. You know, you don't get that moment if you don't win. So Tommie and every other athlete, Megan and people who have done that, it's really. It becomes this moment of brokerage where again, in terms of what I just think of the asymmetry of effort, you know, the entire life spent to cultivate a craft to get to one moment, you know, to earn a canvas. I call it a canvas, to earn a 90-second performance art canvas, you know, to go do something that the world is looking at. It is such a great moment to live in and be. You know, how did because I always, how do you describe for everyone too? Because, one last little bit about the things. What were the socks that you wore when you were running the race?
They're my church socks.
Okay. So and they were thin. They were the thin church
It's
socks.
slippery, you know, these kind of.
Okay.
Just like this.
Okay. And the shoes you were wearing were
Oh, they were.
the first Velcro.
Oh. How you remember all this stuff?
Come on, man.
That's why he's a good artist. First time anyone wore Velcro, and I was afraid that it would pop loose, you know. So I wore tie-up shoes still.
So the man broke a world record wearing his church socks that were a half a size too small because his socks were thin, foot slipping around in the first Velcro shoe that he didn't know was going to stay on his feet with a injured groin muscle. And beat everyone in order to do that. And if I will say, if you watch the race again with that knowledge and you look at the last straightaway, it looks. And I did not grow up as a heavily religious person, but a hand of God or someone pulls Tommie like a cartoon, and the acceleration and the athletic might there is phenomenal. It is an unbelievably. It's an unbelievable moment. It's crazy.
My buddies, who didn't stay in school because they liked other things more than competition, would agree with that, whatever you said.
Basically saying that you're awesome. And so after, you know, not to get into stuff that people have heard versions of, but like when you come off the victory stand. Well, how about this? When you're in the dungeon, by the way, the dungeon is the term that a lot of the athletes used for the dressing room. Yeah. Which was in a low, dark area that we also had a chance to visit. And just talk us through that moment of deliberation, because I know there's a lot of, everyone has a version of it, and we're all here. And so what happens in there, and how do you decide to go?
I walked in that room with the other two people. That was John Carlos and Peter Norman of Australia. We were the three people preparing to go to war. Basically, that's what it was. There's a 1, 2, and there was 3, and I didn't believe in 2s and 3s. So I was very quiet. I had called my wife a few days before one day before, to bring me a pair of gloves. She said, Tom, what are you going to do with the gloves? I said, I don't know. Just bring me the gloves. She said, okay. Well, she brought me a pair of gloves. Nice gloves, too. And I knew I wanted to do something that people could see. I didn't want to go through this year and a half of people threatening me and the house being ramshacked with stones, I guess. Almost hit my son in his night crib. I didn't want that to go unseen or unheard. So I wanted the world to know that I wasn't a vengeance person. There's a lot of racism here. You could see it by day and by night. People are being killed for no reason. I'm a young guy. I'm not talking now. I'm talking to a young guy back then, what was happening, what I was thinking then. So I got to promote wellness in our society some way. But I don't have time to do anything. So that's why I wanted to show. And because of the flag, it was not against the flag, it was from the heart of you. Because you see what I did. Are you a part of the need for it to be continuously done? Because I had to do it. I had to do it. You can say, well, you wanted to do it because you did it. I said I had to do it, which covers that. And I think I made a good choice. I almost lost my life more than once because of it. I did lose things that I wanted to become because the longevity I wanted, which was those 3 things I mentioned a few moments before. It was not against the flag. It was not an act of injustice mentoring. It was something that my heart said, do and live with the repercussions. I think I made a choice. There have been choices made since me to do things like this, but I was not in the street. I was not going to the street. The platform was my street. The platform was streets of anyone who needed to say something and did not. Take me and use me as your verbiage to acknowledge what you needed to say. You want to knock me? Go ahead. But don't hurt the stand, because it was not a stand of militancy. I'm telling you this, whether you believe it or not. I was not a militant person. Sally could tell you that. But I did it because of a need to move forward. I was so proud to be ROTC. That's part of the country, big part of the country. You see in the film, I was so proud I took it to the victory stand. You had me doing my left faces and right faces right there on the victory stand when they turn right and turn back left. I took it with me.
And that's another really great thematic of all this exploration we've done is that stand, because it's there was no words associated. It immediately became a symbol, and people got to put, for better or for worse, their own read on it. And
That's right.
a lot of the people we've spoken to have very eloquently described how, that really began to ask the question, what does it mean to be a patriot? Is being patriotic blind allegiance, as Nelson says, to the flag, or is it being patriotic questioning what our country can do better? And so to put out there, and this is the thing about art, which is what I always say about art, and I say that for me, the works that I produce, I try to have them ask more questions than they answer, because otherwise I'd just be illustrating or just documenting something. For me, it's can you create an artwork that provokes the question of why did that artist make that? What is the process, and what does that represent? What does that mean? And you don't have to do that with exposition. You can do that with poetics. You can do that by being open. And the salute was an open, really an open frame for people to put on their own thing. Jesse in the film says something great. He says, some people see it, because Jesse famously did a speech over the BET Awards, and at the end he raised his fist, and for him, Jesse said, it means I love you, but some people see that and they think, oh, that means kill cops, and what is Jesse's line? Jesse has the best line. It's like, Jesse Williams is so great. It's like, who thought it was a good idea for me to be in a movie with Jesse Williams and Tommie Smith? Like, it was him, Afshin. But Jesse says some people read that and say, oh, something cartoonish like kill cops or something ridiculous and act of fantasy, but for him it meant love, and for everyone it means something different. And how do you feel when you see people, well, first when you see this crowd here, when you see people, artists, musicians, people out there, referencing you, thinking about you, talking about you, NBA players, how does that feel?
It brings a smile on my face because I think they recognize the use of the fist is more than beating on somebody's head with it. It's a pride. For me, it was a pride. It was a power stance, not necessarily a black power. I was already that. I didn't have to prove that to you. But it was a pride, it was a power, it was a gesture of solidarity. What else could I do to show my allegiance to who I was and what I wanted to accomplish? I had to hold something up. Some people hold the battlefield up. I mean, the battlefield for their Lord, or the battlefield for their children. And Muhammad Ali used it for something else. You knock somebody out like the fight the other night. But Tommie Smith used it for a different reason. People couldn't get that across. They didn't know how to take that. They looked at it as a nonviolent sport, track and field. And I went there to win with the forces that I had learned through the science of speed.
Hey, let's jump on that nonviolent sport thing for a second, because I think also for the journalists in the room, a really interesting thing that I didn't know was that was the first time the Olympics was broadcast live.
Yeah.
Right? And so that was the first time that something like that could happen, because there was no 5-second buzzer, on a delay at that moment. So how, did the athletes, did y'all know that was the first live broadcast? Because there was no Rage Against the Machine.
No, we did. I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I just wanted to beat somebody. I had no way of knowing, nor did Brent Musburger. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I knew afterwards, and it was, even before I knew it, the Olympic Project for Human Rights, which touched the globe, not just the United States, or not just San Jose, the city of San Jose, which I started my serious competitions at, on a dirt track with 4 spikes in the bottom of that shoe, almost doing the Jesse Owens sometime, digging holes in the ground just to start, because we were here just that poor.
No blocks. Yeah.
I didn't have them all the time. Smith, okay, you and Ronnie Ray, he was Ronnie Ray Smith. He was a 9-3. We all had 9-3 sprinters. Poor folks in here know that new Speed City. That was Speed City here before us now. I don't think that Tommie Smith and John Carlos and Lee Evans and all those guys started Speed City. Speed City existed before we got here. We just put another layer on it, a golden layer that we competed from. If you wanted to make the relay team at San Jose State, you better run a 9-3 in the 100-yard dash. And we had 10 people that run 9-4 or better. And we were no joke. We'd destroy you by smiling at you in your face. But
So
we
there's
loved
a-
you still. That didn't mean that we hated you. That means that you picked a hard place to reside.
Yeah, we'll talk about Colin Kaepernick real quick and the athletes of today. We got to go meet Colin in this crazy journey together. What did you think about when you first heard of Colin protesting and what the repercussions were?
When I first heard, I knew that he was headed toward some type of mental anguish, because I knew that he was going to be accosted in a direction of hate or discontent. As far as the finances, I didn't have the time to think about the finances but the safety of him, the safety of his person. That's was my concern. And his continual direction of what he had done to bring a point about. That's about the only way he could. Colin was raised 60, 70 miles from where I was raised in the San Joaquin Valley. And I think he proposed an idea that he thought that might raise the attention to stop the killing of black people in the streets by police officers, and raising the consciousness of how can we move this forward without killing those that work so hard to build a country. Educationally, it was and still is a sad situation that we have to go negative directions just to bring in a positive thought. But sometimes it's necessary to do these things. Now, it has been said by one of the greatest orators in history that sometimes the thought of raising your voice is to make it in the streets so people could hear you one way or the other. And some people call it violence. I think he called it an ear for the truth, what is going on to bring about a point. This was in the back of his mind, I believe, and I don't believe that, as people didn't believe in Tommie Smith back in the day, that this was the right thing to do. Nobody asked you, is it the right thing to do? But only the person who's doing it, who's sacrificing, thought it was the right thing to do, because he or she has to suffer the consequences of whatever they did. If you're going to sit around and not do anything and hear people verbally talking about the system in a negative way or using the old Jim Crow acts, you should just shut up and go to a place and sit down, because all they're doing is adding to the problem that's already been founded. Whatever you think you can do, I think you ought to take some action and do it. Or talk to some of your friends. Maybe talk to some of your friends is not the best idea. Talk to your minister. Maybe that's not the best idea either. So it's all left up to you still. And you have to suffer those consequences.
One more clip. Yeah. Some questions? Anyone have any couple? We have time for a few questions. 2 questions. Anyone have a question? Yeah.
How spontaneous was it when you raised your hand, your arms, and then what about the shoes?
Right. Spontaneity was had its place in that. But we didn't know really, because it had to be quick, because the race was only less than 20 seconds and something had to happen. We had discussed it. That's why I asked my wife to bring the blood. I know I was going to use it, but I didn't know how. So the Olympic Project of Human Life birthplace was only a half a mile back in the square, right there where the statue stands now. I remember walking across that area going to the meetings that discussed OPHR at that particular time. It was the one thing to do. I didn't come there to do that. I came there with education. I thought at the time I didn't know how God was going to use me to bring about this change. But spontaneity did have its problems. The shoes. I had to show a reason. I had to show a way to show poverty in the United States of African American people. And to take my shoes off and roll my pants leg up, wear black socks, to make a pointed and rounded answer to that particular strike. Everything the communist wore on the picture stand had a reason for me wearing it. And these were thought immediately, because the shoes, the socks, I had anyway. They were already there. And the feet came with the socks, and the shoes were there with me, because I wanted to pay allegiance to the company that basically saved my son's life. In terms of helping me with the semi-food. And of course, you know, the black glove on a fist, shoulder power, and around my neck, scarf showed the lineage of us through slavery, and it showed a history of Tommy Smith. But it was from a human rights experience around the world that I'm not the only one that suffered. Those that suffered too, but this is my way of showing and my appreciation of that race to our children. You know, I'm kind of picking at it, but that's the way it was. Sitting here in this one, our story would be the same, but words would be different to explain.
But
The box. Oh, the box is in the Smithsonian, isn't it?
yep, yes, it is.
Remember back in the day, folks who remember Jesse, you remember Jesse Owens? No, you remember the stories, not the year. Films. They had a grease on their head. 68 people had olive trees given to them.
Olive branch, yeah.
This was a tree. It had little white balls.
It's a tree branch.
That was a root. Had I planted it, it would have grown into a tree. But it had a root, and I said, if we had going to be after me anyway, so I'm not going to put this in the ground. I just saved it. But I didn't know I would be running so fast. Even in school at Oberlin, FBI came there looking for me. That was 75. But it wasn't for me. It was for someone else. What was it for? Oh, I thought you were going to say, I don't say that.
Yeah. So quickly, sorry. We're going to start spiraling. Let's go back to the gloves because I really want to talk about the story you told me about the gloves. Oberlin, Kevin, backseat.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to get out of that, but I guess, see. Daddy said, you don't forget nothing, do you? My daddy always told me, Tommy, you don't forget nothing because I was always a kid who remembered things. Okay. I had a Chevrolet, a car, Lenovo. And Kevin would sit in the back seat in his car seat chewing on the glove. And I didn't think anything of it because it was the glove I wore in Mexico City, and it was cold in September, and October, November, so I wore them for gloves, and sometimes I wore them for warmth, sometimes I would just throw it in the back seat. This time Kevin got it and he started chewing it. Last time I saw it, Kevin was chewing on the thumb of that glove. That's the last time I've seen it. I saw it.
Hilarious. One more question. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, this has been exceptional. So thank you both for being here. It's quite an experience, and the work is amazing, and we've been happy to have it here. I was wondering what's next for it. Are there any plans, and who's gonna get to see it next? If there's anything you can share with us.
For the artwork?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we are hatching some plans right now, and so hopefully there will be a viewing for. I'm being purposely elusive and not being so deft and subtle about it, but hopefully there will be a viewing for some athletes because there's something happening in the summertime somewhere over across the Pacific. But if we play our cards right, there will be a large exhibition or an exhibition of some sorts out there, and some people got together and made a movie about the thing, and people are doing some stories and stuff about the thing, and hopefully we have a summer games. So here we go. Anyways, one last question. Sorry.
Here you go.
52 years later, we'd still be talking about this?
I didn't think I'd live right after the games. Really, seriously. 50, and I'm very thankful for that. And I was founded by a person has really brought out something in my person that I didn't know I had. But I always would save up things and do things that people didn't understand or didn't believe about me, and I didn't know either. Thought I was kind of crazy. I was quiet anyway, so they thought I was going off on the deep end or something. No, I did not. I suppose that's why I worked so hard. I worked hard as a teacher because that was kind of safe for me in terms of doing things. I read from a book and taught from a book. I didn't have to come out of my own brain to do it, on my own brains to understand what I was reading. That was safe for me. So you see, I believe that it was a divine purpose for me to do what I did and to continue in believing that if I could, you could, or anybody could, is what I tell my students. And for the older people that I talk to, it's not me on the victory stand, it's you on the victory stand, me seeing a shadow. And I think that's because Invisible Man, that you are purposely formatted, and that's one of my favorite objects that you have created in this whole picture of Tommie Smith and his moving forward. And I hope that I can keep on living for a while longer, because there's some other things that I'd like to do.
Here's that. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate your time.